Yes, time is now 10 and we will get started with this fourth webinar of the series of our COVID-19 briefing for Nordic startups and scale-ups. My name is Kent Du Frederiksen and I'm heading Danske Bank Growth in the bank. We are a specialized unit focusing on startups and scale-ups. And it's very certain that we are in a global health crisis, which affects all of us in so many ways. This also now reflects into the financial in the environments and especially also into the startup scene in the Nordic. To gain some insights on how it affects you guys in the ecosystems, we have asked for your help on a survey to find out how does this crisis affect the startups in the Nordic, and 70% has actually replied that yes, this has a huge effect on our startup. And on the same time, we can see that the biggest worry is missing future sales. So 81% is actually saying that they're worried for their future sales. So there are a lot of uncertainty out there and related to this situation that we are in right now. With this format, the goal of the webinars is to put some of the timely topics on the agenda and help you navigate easier in this environment that we are in right now. Today's topic is on liquidity, and we used to say that cash is king, and in these times it is even more. Liquidity is super important to survive and get through this, as we can see that funding markets and investors has frozen that little bit. So how to navigate in that and how to build your liquidity budgets and process and work with your liquidity. This is what this webinar session is about. I have two colleagues with me today. So I have Kasper Lyskær with me and Morten Borsbo, who is both from our cash management departments, who will set the scene of the topic before we will move into questions, because the main goal of these webinars is to ask the questions that you have on your mind, So please feel free to share all the questions that you could have related to this topic and the current situation. The questions that you have, you just post them on the chat, and then I will navigate in that and pick out the questions as we go on. So already now, think about, related to this topic, what kind of questions do you have, and post them on the chat, and then I will pick them out as we go. But let's start with just a short introduction of the two guests that I have with me today, Kasper and Morten. Welcome to this webinar session, and thank you for attending. Could you just say a few seconds about yourself and introduce yourself? Would you start, Morten?
Yeah, thank you very much for having us here. My name is Morten Borsbo. I've been working as a cash manager here in Danske Bank for 4 years and working with banking for 20 some years. Cash management is very much about how to move your liquidity around the company, how to get money in from your customers, and how to pay your suppliers, and always a lot of things about how to handle this. Cash is very much a part of our job. Yeah, Kasper?
Yes, also from my point of view, I'm also the cash manager in Danske Bank, but the last 3 years I was a part of Danske Bank Growth as an advisor, and I started in cash management this year. So I'm here to bridge the gap between the traditional cash management and the growth side of it. So looking forward to our chat today.
And we're super happy for you being able to attend and want to share your insights on this topic. So just a few practical things. The session will be recorded and shared afterwards. Kasper and Morten will just start out setting the scene related to the topic, focusing on liquidity for the future and how you can manage and optimize your cash flow in this current situation. And then we'll move into the Q&A session, where all questions, post them on the chat, and then we'll go through them as we go on, and already just start doing that right now. That would be perfect. So over to you, Kasper and Morten, to setting the scene related to the topic. And again, thank you for attending this webinar session.
Thank you very much. And I can see that the presentation is going to be presented in a moment. Super. Yeah, today we're going to talk a bit about how to optimize your liquidity in this, what can we say, terrible situation where we don't know much about the future, and where can we help you? So we're going to talk about what can you do here in the short run, in the short-term focus, but also to look into it in a longer term and see, okay, how can we optimize some processes? How can we look into our liquidity in the future to see, okay, what can we do over a long-term base? But still here in a short-term focus, what we need to do, what you need to do, is to make an overview of, okay, what is your expected liquidity for the following month or the following year? Cash is, as Ken says, king. So to make a plausible cash flow forecast can be very, very difficult. So you need to take some time to look into, okay, how can we do this? How can we do this in the best and easiest way? And also to give us an example of, okay, what will the liquidity be over the coming month? In Danske Bank, we try to do this by helping you with developing a liquidity model together with our corporate analytics department in the different countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and they made a model to help you how to make this expected cash flow, how to get an overview of your expected cash flow for the coming month. There are actually two different ways of looking into this. One of them is actually just looking at, okay, what is our incoming payments for the following month? What are our outgoing payments and stuff like that? But also you can look into it at a more what you sell by looking into inventory and all your assets and looking what effects that will have. And when looking at the liquidity, also think into creating different scenarios. As Tommy Andersen said in his previous presentation here at 8 o'clock, he said that try to look into having your turnover fall 50% and see what that will happen and for how long a period. Try making different scenarios for the liquidity and seeing what will your liquidity look like over the coming month. Another thing that's important in these times is actually to have access to your liquidity. Many of you scalers and startups are born international, so many of you use different banks in different countries. So it's really important to make an overview of all the liquidity accessible across all banks and all markets. In this, you can be able to do that in Danske Bank with via your district. If you have access to, you can gain access actually to different accounts across the world, so that you've got that one overview in one picture. So that will actually help you in this situation, trying to get access to the right, to see that you have the right cash at hand. And if you haven't got access to the liquidity at the moment, it's important now to do that, to try to get access to it, to see, okay, you can take the liquidity home, so you've got it present where you are. It's also important here to look into what are your positions in different currencies, because if you are born global, then you've got different currencies, and you need to be very much aware of the currency risk if you've got your liquidity in different currencies that are not your base currency. So think about, okay, what is this like? Be aware of it and have a picture of it. And also, I know that we've got some other Slido wins with the currency situation. Kent, isn't that true? That in the coming days?
Yes, we have. So the last webinar session, which is next week, so if I remember right, it's Wednesday. We are talking more about like the currencies fluctuations in this crisis and how to like lower your risk on currencies these days, and also about our expectation of the different currencies going ahead.
Exactly. So an interesting webinar next week then. Yeah. Also, when looking into this part and the liquidity management part, it's important now to have a close follow-up on overdue overdue payments. Really have a focus on how is your liquidity running. Be very much aware of where your outstanding positions and having trying to get them back as soon as possible, because cash is king at the moment. Also, there are different other types of thinking, trying to look into fast invoicing. I know that you've got different business models, so that require different measures. If you have a SaaS solution, how can you do that? If you're into normal invoicing, how can you do that? How can you make the invoicing process faster so that you can get your invoices out as quick as possible to get the payments in? Also look into your payment terms to both your customers, but also looking into the payment terms with your creditors. When you're looking into trying to talk with all your creditors to see, okay, where can they help, just to have your liquidity even closer to you. And the fourth thing is to look into the different help packages that the different states offer. Here in Denmark, we've got some different packages. I know that they're also looking into it in Norway, Sweden, and Finland. So look into that as well.
Yes.
Any comments? Sorry, any comments on that, Kasper or Kent, before we move on?
Let's get back to that afterward in the questioning, if there are any questions or comments on it. Let's do that. Thank you, Morten.
Good. Yes, and if I should take it from the startup perspective, there's quite a few different metrics that you can look into. You all know the lifetime value over CAC factor. It's very important to look into that area. Within the lifetime value, we can expect it to decrease in these times as your churn probably is going up. I think that companies are looking to cut costs, as you also will be, and that could decrease your lifetime value on your portfolio of customers. Also, it can be affected on if you do some measures yourself, like, for example, doing a push for annual signups. If you're a SaaS model company, you probably should do that with some discount if you want the customers to pay more upfront, and that discount also affects your lifetime value. So when looking into that lifetime value over CAC ratio, when the lifetime value is going down, you also need to focus on the acquisition cost side. And as we wrote here, the marketing spend could be an easy fix to look into that. When you don't earn as much and you're from your customers, you also should pay less from to get these customers. So look into that metric all the time. Keep focus on your marketing spend. It could also be some of the other expenses in your company that could be decreased, and at that point increase your ratio again. Everything is done to keep your runway as it is, or even extending it. You could discuss that at times like these in the recession, that your lifetime value over CAC even should be higher because of the uncertainty in the market. So keep that in mind. That's an advice from here. If you look into your company and you are a SaaS model company, as I just said, to make this push for the annual signups, it could be a way to gain some fast liquidity in times like these. I've seen examples where you do the push and you do some extraordinary discounts to get your customers to sign up for the annual package, the annual plan instead of the monthly plan. So that could of course affect your liquidity in long terms, but right now it should give you a higher liquidity at the moment. Also, if you have within your company has some charge per the hour work, try to work more with prepayments whenever it's possible. Make your customers pay up front so that you can get cash at hand, which is very important in a time of crisis. Yeah, so that's 2 areas where you can look into. But even though that you look into all these areas, perhaps you still end up with a shorter runway than today. The VCs recommend that you have a runway of at least 12 months at this moment. So if you don't have that, keep in mind that you should work towards that. Keep a close dialogue with your existing investors. Right now, it can be hard to go out and get new investors on board, but the existing investors should be close and informed, and you can use them, reach out to them for emergency funding, for example, a bridge round. And also, if you have an upcoming tranche within the next 3 months, have a dialogue with them about if you still are to expect to get this tranche, even though that you perhaps don't reach the goals as was said in the agreements. We typed upon also to use the local help packages if it is available for you. But also that's a way to perhaps extend your runway. And then one of the areas that is not that funny, but you can also take a dialogue with your employees and let them help in this situation by perhaps having a wage salary cut, or having a working less hours in these times. It could be a joint interest to keep the company running. Yeah. So this is some of the areas that we can touch upon, and to get when you have done these things, and if you want to then have this overview of what will the effect actually be on my cash flow, then the next slide, Mikkel. Then I just briefly want to touch upon the liquidity model that we have developed, and this model actually helps you gain knowledge on what the effects will be on your liquidity if any of the changes that you expect to come will come. So it is that we type in the budget that you probably already has made for this year, and then we can make some changes in it. And we use this as a dialogue tool in our dialogue with you guys, so that we can talk about, this is what you expect, but how will it affect it if the crisis will extend 3 months more? And it is also in here that the VCs and we say that try to calculate, for example, with a 50% fall in revenue, what will it and how will it affect your liquidity? So this is as a free offer from our side to help you in these times, and we of course want to have a dialogue with you as well around this area. Yes.
And this, with this model here, you have to talk to your local relationship manager to access this, and they will also be able to help you as well as us.
Yes.
Thank you a lot, Morten and Kasper, for setting the scene related to this topic, and some really interesting insights from my side here. And so the access to the model you gain through you contact the bank through our traditional channels, your advisor, and then they will give you access to the liquidity budget, so you are able to use it. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And we assist along with the corporate analytics guys. We assist on how to use this guide. You can see here on the slide it's in Danish, but it will be in Danish, Swedish, and Norwegian, and Finnish. I also think.
Okay. Super good insight. So for any of you who doesn't have any who doesn't use Danske Bank as a customer at the moment, you are still welcome to reach out to gain insights on this liquidity model. And the way you can do it is by sending a mail to the mail that I just posted in the chat, called nordicgrowth.danskebank.dk.com. So send a mail to that email address, and then we will help you out get access to the liquidity budget here and the calculation tool. So just to understand it right, in this liquidity budget, you're able to do scenarios on an easy level. So you, because there are so many uncertainties right now that many companies doesn't know how much their sales will decrease or change. So here you can do some different scenarios and get a fast overview on the different scenarios. Is that right?
Exactly. It's quite easy. You just change the different fields and then see what impact will it have. The thing about liquidity planning or liquidity forecasting is actually that it's not an exact science. So you can do it very what's it called, very detailed. But the thing is, if you do that, you just make it a lot more complex. This here is actually a simple model to see, okay, what are the impacts on simple changes? Which impact will this have on my liquidity? You can also do a very detailed liquidity budget. Then this model here is very simple, but still it's a lot easier to use than trying to make very complex liquidity models. And in the end, it will give almost the same outcome. So try the simple one at first.
So I guess one of the learnings is definitely to find a model that is easy to do scenarios in, so that you use some time on it once, and then it's easy to do different scenarios, because in these uncertain times, this can change almost from week to week, as we see it right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. And in my point of view, you can have this year as an what will our liquidity be? But still, in some cases, you need to be very detailed when planning from day to day to see, okay, what is actually which bills can we pay, which bills can we pay, which customers pays tomorrow and stuff like that. Then you need a more detailed plan. But with this one, you'll get an overview of how things will look in large numbers.
And I guess a good way, the right way to get started, is to focus also on what you know, and what you know today is the cost side of it. So focusing on the cost side of that, out of it, being really precise and data driven on that part, will make you be able to do some scenarios afterwards where you can play a little bit with the salary or the revenue streams afterwards. Is that, could that be approach to it, where you also, because it's a lot of how to rely on the things you put into it if it changes, but I guess the cost side you can predict pretty precise.
You know the cost side. Otherwise, you can change some sides of the cost, like the acquisition cost, how much spent on promotions and stuff like that. But still, yeah, you know the cost side, and then you can see the impacts on the turnover. As Tommy said, try looking into a turnover cut of 50% and see what will happen then.
And then what Morten refers to is the last webinar we had, where we invited Byfounders, Tommy Andersen from Byfounders, Nordic VC fund, to a session related to that. They are actually asking their companies to cut down the revenue streams with 50%, and how does the liquidity budget and everything look like on that part. Then there's a little bit about the runway part. So knowing your costs, you can play with different scenarios in your revenue streams, and then you can see how long your runway are related to your liquidity in the company. You mentioned a little bit about it, Casper, but what would you recommend for how long should your runway be, and what should be your goal of trying to manage to build up a pipeline or a runway?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the probably the best, and also what Tommy said this morning, a runway around 12 months at this moment is a good idea, because we don't know how long this crisis will take. We also know that even though that the crisis perhaps is over, the health crisis is over during the summer, the economy will be affected in longer times. So perhaps even 12 months isn't enough. Perhaps it is up to 2 years that the economy will be affected of this changes. So when we say 12 months, it's to give you some time to change, adapt to the new reality of the world, and perhaps to have some good times to talk to the investors, for example.
Yeah, and I guess that runway perspective is like how to secure your long-term strategy is like to focus on building a runway for the next 12 months. Then you have the short-term liquidity issues where it is about getting money in from your customers. You can work with your lifetime value on that, but maybe we should focus a little bit on the long term and then move more down to the short term afterwards. But let's keep a little bit focus on the long term. So having focusing on trying to build a long term 12 months runway. I guess there's different ways of working into that, but there's no way of coming around the cost side where it is about taking fast decisions and being super agile on that part, and also be a bit harsh on it, to take the cost and the cut downs needed pretty early. And then to achieve the same way, or how do you see that part in the situation that we are in right now?
Yes, I see that at this situation it's very important to take the harsh decisions, to trim your organization, trim all the expenses, bring them down to an absolute minimum, so that it can help you extend your runway. So everything fun or not needed in your company to keep the company running should be turned over, and should be removed if possible. Yeah.
That's also reflecting into what we see in the funding space, that companies being in a funding process at the moment are searching for funding is super hard right now, because there's so many uncertainties, so that investors are not that much likely to do new investments right now, but are more likely to focus on their current portfolios. So if you have good investors on board, that's probably the ones to approach first to do some bridging. But new investments, we expect definitely to be hard to find new investments in this market that we're in right now. And then we are back to what do you have to focus on? Then it is your costs. So how to bring down costs so you are the most likely to survive and get through this and extend your runway. Did you have a comment on it, Morten? I thought you were.
No, it was actually two things I was thinking about. Was actually when I'm going to on the next slide is actually looking into how to optimize your value chain, to see if we can do something with that. But also when looking into cost savings and cuts, one of the things that you should also think about is how to optimize and optimize your processes in this part. Actually, many of the customers that approach me at the moment is actually by looking into these things, like having the best integration to their ERP system, so that they don't use any time on reconciling incoming or outgoing payments and stuff like that. So it's actually looking into how to optimize your situation at the moment. And by this, you can also save time for the bookkeeper or your finance department, that how many hands are actually needed here. So that's some of the parts that we see a lot of inquiries about at the moment.
Definitely a good point, and then you're back to the value chain of it. Also, you touched a little bit upon it, how to like work through your value chain and take some decision related to that.
It's exactly, because you spend a lot of cash in your value chain. This is actually for a production company that are putting the value chain up, but this will definitely be usable for scalers and startups as well, because this here you looks at actually from how many products do you need, how many projects do you need to have access to, how to work on at the moment. What is your spend? What is your supplier situation like? Do you need to have a stock of some point? And also just looking into all these processes take up cash. So if you look into this, then it could give you a picture of, okay, where is our cash stocked? Is it with the inventory or products that we need to sell, or is it from sales that you've got a lot of overdue payables or stuff like that? Then or receivables, sorry, stuff like that. And how much do you need to have on stock for reservice or restock? So this is actually a model that all companies can look into to see, okay, where our cash is at the moment.
Where this position, where do you have some cash bindings? Where is it pushed in? And I guess a lot of our big companies are also revisiting this in crisis situations, is going back to the value chain, back to the basics, revisit the different steps on how to optimize, how to maybe think new related to some of the parts in the value chain, because it's definitely also these things will also form the next generation of the big companies. So the ones that also see opportunities in the situation we are in will also be the ones that can accelerate the fastest out of the crisis. And that's a lot about having a solid value chain where you also like can have a cash-wise optimization of that, so you can fuel your growth the most on the other side of this. Should we move a bit back to the questions again? So you can just
yes, please
close down the slide, Mikkel. Sure. So now there's a question about the help packages, and that's also a little bit back to the long-term perspective which we have been circling around now. We're thinking about the cost, the funding, and the value chain of it. How to like think about the long term of gaining this burn rate of 12 months. The help packages as it is right now, and Jakob is asking the question. You're totally right, Jakob, that the help packages and the guarantees doesn't fit really well into startup and scale ups, and it will be really hard to use those guarantees towards the segment, unfortunately. I know that Vex Fund and the growth funds around are working hard on creating some. They're aware of the issue, and I talk to the politicians about it, and are working on how to solve this problem, because it is a problem. And then back to, you also have to be aware of, is it the right thing to get debt into your company? Are you then ready to accelerate on the other side, or is it lowering the cost? It's so much a balance, but you're totally right in what you are writing here. And then the question, so are there any of the companies who can benefit of these help packages? And I guess that the guarantee related to banking lending is hardly to use towards the segment, but where the government is paying parts of the salaries to employees, are helping all these things out, then you can you'll definitely be able to use those ones. So we have seen a lot of startups and companies sending home employees and tapping into some of the help packages towards employees. That is where we have seen the most use of the help packages, and then we are hoping for that will come more. I guess for the Nordic environment, we see some of the same trends starting to happening in the other Nordic countries. So there will be help packages, and it's super crucial to be close to that, to see how can those packages help me related to extend my runway and gain this 12 months of runway, because when we are on the other side, things will settle more and investors will be more comfortable in the markets and are probably more likely to invest some funding again into it. So that's also a little bit back to the long-term planning. For the more like shorter term rule of thumbs, could we put a few more words on that part? So it's a lot about like getting your cash in. I guess we see a lot of big companies having problems handling their payments and stuff right now, as they have no employees at work and are still working with rather old systems. So if your customers are big companies, there could be some issue just administrating your invoice, but how to navigate that and yeah, on the short-term basis of getting cash in. Could one of you have a reflection on that? I can also try to, but I guess there's a lot of like.
But still, it's difficult times at the moment. Actually, I had a mail from Fitness World yesterday regarding my membership, saying that okay, would I like to have my membership stopped or a discount or stuff like that, and trying to get to say okay, what can we do on that part? And then actually, in my point of view, I just said keep it going, because I know they're also struggling. So I think it's really being able to confront your customers and say, okay, we need your money. It's important for us, and then trying to gain access to them and try to get the right people, hold of the right people. But I know some of the greater companies, some of them are doing actually are trying to pay upfront or pay earlier than expected. Others are a bit more difficult to work with. But still having a dialogue with your customers and trying to say, okay, we actually want our money. Can you please send it to us?
A really good point, because are they actually able to pay your invoices, or are you expecting them to pay the invoices, but the invoice payments are not coming? Can have huge effects right now on the liquidity and everything in the company. So good point of like reaching out to your customers, having these dialogues. I guess for everyone, we are in a special situation. So having these dialogues is rather normal, also related to our traditional segments, right?
Yeah, and actually you could reach out even before the due date, because it is within the market right now that some companies do pay before due date. So it doesn't. Yeah, you can reach them and just to make sure that they are paying at due date at least. But perhaps they will be able to pay you upfront, even though.
And also guess that a lot of startups, the ones that like having a build on digital products and are tech-based, also have some advantages these days, and probably some solutions that is super crucial for a lot of big companies to keep on running and keep working, which could be a way of also pushing a little bit on the invoices or making companies pay earlier than expected. That is some of the trends we can see among the big companies that still has a good liquidity, are aware of the ecosystem problems, and are also willing to maybe pay beforehand. I think it's something to revisit and talk with customers about.
Yeah, and on the other hand, to your the place you live, the rent, contact them. Everyone is interested in that you survive. So have a talk with them about postponing or lower rent in these times. That's in everyone's interest.
Yeah, because there's a good point of asking about lower rent, but you also have the revisit of the employees. So I know you touched, you have had some thoughts about that, Casper, about also salaries and that, how to work with that on the short term and what we've seen. Could you put a few words on that?
Yeah.
So it was like going like have a group lowering of salaries.
That is what we've seen, that the group in general is interested in keeping their jobs when this is over. So if a collective wage cut is needed to keep the company running, then they should be interested in that. So look into that area. I believe it's a big chunk of your expenses that are the wages. So look into how to work with those. And of course we are here to keep employees on their jobs. So try to see if you can keep them employed by deducting the pays or making them work less hours or something.
Good point. And then to revisit the salary on a group level and probably also like the rental part.
I think if I can just add something to that, I think it's really important to have an open dialogue with this and being open about saying, okay, we are in this situation. We need you guys to be able to help us with having a salary cut or with your creditors saying, we need you on our side as well. We've been a good customer with you, then please help us in this situation. A thing in my experience is that being in front of the development, taking things up front instead of doing it on the backside is a good thing in this situation. If you're trying to be open about it and trying to be going there before it's necessary, trying to work on your creditors and also your employees to see, okay, trying to inform them and be in front. So it's a lot easier when the decision is made to say, okay, yeah, we'll accept the 25% down our salary cut or something like that. So it's a lot easier.
Also, what you said, Casper, about like having maybe some discounts on yearly payments up front or something like that, especially towards subscription and SaaS. So we maybe revisit the discount model for revenue streams to get some more cash up front, and then even though we will lose a little bit on that on the long run, but right now that could be the model of fueling your company to get through it until the funding markets are loosening up a little bit again. Definitely. So time is running. Any last question as I'm thinking? What about? Do we have any good advices to get started with this? So where to start? Doing these things. What if you should mention one thing? Where to start? Maybe from both of you, and then time is running out.
Get an overview of your liquidity. How does it look like? Then that's the most important advice for me. That's trying to see, okay, what's it like when it comes around.
Yeah. At the moment, what are your position, and then also look into the next 6 months and how does it develop, and you should do that better soon than later.
From my side, I would say definitely revisit your cost side to take also some of the hard decision. Better before than later in the situation that we are in these days. But definitely, cash is king, and it was super nice to have you on board, Morten and Casper, talking about this topic. I hope that all your listeners got your question answered and you got something out of it. We have recorded the session, so the session will be uploaded on the homepage, which I think Mail will share in a second, so you can see where to find the recordings. The recordings will be shared on the homepage, which you can see here, and that is also where you can see the upcoming next webinars. On the email address that is where, if you have any questions related to this, or you wanted access to the liquidity budget or anything, you can send a mail to this email address, and then we will get back to you as fast as possible. On the next slide here. If you could just switch to the next slide, Mikkel. Yes, you have the overview of the upcoming webinars. So the next webinar will be Monday at 8, which will be related to business angels. We have Dan Ban invited. Then we have a talk about being a founder in this situation is super stressful, and a lot of things you have to navigate in. So how to also take care of yourself. That's next Tuesday. Then Wednesday, we are focusing on SaaS models, specifically how to be a SaaS subscription model in a crisis. Then we are tipping in on having a focus on the currency exchanges, which Morten mentioned. So revisit how does the currencies fluctuate and how to lower your risk on the currency. The currencies going forward, and what is our expectations to the different currencies. And then we have a totally new webinar. This is on Thursday, where we will next Thursday, the 16th of April, which will be related to how to navigate the customers in customers and partnerships under these certain times. So if you have a lot of big partnerships or customers that you work with, how to navigate in all that space, and that's also a topic we're looking very much forward to talk about. So hope to see more of you guys in the next coming webinars. And thank you all a lot for joining in. And again, thanks to you, Morten and Kasper, for tipping in and joining in on this call about liquidity. So thank you a lot, and have a nice day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Nice day.